I reject your straight line. I laugh at your saved time. I yearn for unstructured playtime. You claim to have an app for that. I refute your definitions of intelligence. I take back my Pledge of Allegiance. You're listening to Two Friends, Two Poems, the podcast where friends read poems to each other just to see what happens. My name's Tom. This was my idea, and it is our first episode of Season 2. Very exciting. Today I'm going to read a poem by Louise Gluck. Paul is going to read a poem by Harjo, and I am going to share a new one of mine as well. But first, let's talk about AI because we have no other choice. I'm working in AI kind of in two ways. I'm using AI to create content for a marketing agency. And I'm also working for a contractor training Google's AI, various AI models. But this illusion of efficiency has fucked my brain up so much, I think.
Yeah.
Where if I just want to run an errand, I have to think through the most efficient way to run that errand. And it's exhausting to me. Like I'm being timed. And the thing is, I am being timed. My phone is timing everything I do.
I think of the computer revolution as like the second religion I fell for. Like it's the first religion I fell for.
Exactly.
The first religion I had to deal with was one I didn't choose. And then I chose this other set of ideas about how the world can be a better place. And it was really just none of that in the end.
Yeah.
It was just all like, cool, now I know what movie that was, and I know the capital of Mongolia.
It was just a promise of a different eternal life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A different form.
But on the other hand, there are the things I like, which are like, I do get to talk to you and at least see you on a screen.
Yeah.
I do get to find poetry that I would have a hard time going to, as much as I'm at the library.
Mm-hmm.
And they have great poetry sections. I do find other poetry with our technology so I just gotta like use it in the ways I like, I guess.
I like that analogy of the library because what overwhelms me about having access to everything all the time is that I never feel like I'm getting the right thing. I never feel like I'm getting the perfect thing. This isn't because there's too much. How could it be? How could this be the right thing? And so I just shut down from looking. And it's interesting you say that because this might be again. I like to point out segues. This might be a great segue.
I bet it is.
But last night yesterday as I was preparing to, what am I going to read today? I was overwhelmed, and I was at Paige's house, and I was looking at all her books, looking for poetry. I didn't recognize anything, and I didn't see anything clearly labeled as poetry. I even got online. I even went to I went to one of the dumb robots to ask, like, hey, give me some poetry about blank, and it suggested Lord Byron, and I was like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what I'm looking for. Although I did find a fun, like I did read a Lord Byron poem, imagining it was about Trump and Elon breaking up, and it made it really funny. But then, so the way I arrived at my poet for today was in bed last night with my partner, and she said, "Have you heard of?" I want to ask you this question: have you heard of the poet Louise Gluck?
I have.
Awesome.
I have. Although So I think I've read her in anthologies before,
Okay.
and
I
I'm sure
believe,
she's related to Jiminy Glick.
I hope so.
They're both
In,
hilarious.
in, they really do the same thing when you think about it. In fairness, her last name is spelled Gluck with an umlaut, and I'm a big fan of the umlaut. Um, but does that mean the band is Motley Crue?
I'm quite sure that the band doesn't know what an umlaut means.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know that story. They were drinking Lowenbrow beer when they named the band, and there was an
Oh,
umlaut. There was an umlaut on the. These are the things I know.
that's that's back when MTV had like really cool material.
Yeah,
Like, ooh, behind the music, Motley Crue.
yeah. And I think another thing that jumped out at me with Louise Gluck, what I was reading last night, is she writes dialogue. A lot of her poems, you can tell, are a conversation, I assume, between her and someone else or between two characters. So that appeals to me, of course. And this is an example of that. It's called The Wish. Remember that time you made the wish? I make a lot of wishes. The time I lied to you about the butterfly, I always wondered what you wished for. What do you think I wished for? I don't know. That I'd come back, that we'd somehow be together in the end. I wished for what I always wish for. I wished for another poem.
I found this this poet Joy Harjo at the library, and was struck by this idea that, like, there's a lot of poems out there that when I think about reading them out loud myself, that I feel like I don't have the authority or the experience to be reading it. Sometimes even reading it in the first place. Because when it's coming through my own voice in particular, it makes it sound like that's my own experience, or that I'm maybe co-opting something even, or taking something I don't, co-opting is the right word. But two, there's an act of, when I'm reading it myself, I think I'm understanding someone else's experience. What's cool is she's an amazing artist across many mediums. And she's been the U.S. Poet Laureate more than one time. And so there's been plenty of action to go, hey, you're an American, you should know this poet. And I've been reading her like I didn't have a right to.
Wow.
So
that's interesting.
I'm going to start with one called She Had Some Horses. She had some horses. She had horses who were bodies of sand. She had horses who were maps drawn of blood. She had horses who were skins of ocean water. She had horses who were the blue air of sky. She had horses who were fur and teeth. She had horses who were clay and would break. She had horses who were splintered red cliff. She had some horses. She had horses with long, pointed breasts. She had horses with full brown thighs. She had horses who laughed too much. She had horses who threw rocks at glass houses. She had horses who licked razor blades. She had some horses. She had horses who danced in their mother's arms. She had horses who thought they were the sun, and their bodies shone and burned like stars. She had horses who waltzed nightly on the moon. She had horses who were much too shy and kept quiet in stalls of their own making. She had some horses. She had horses who liked creak, stomp, dance songs. She had horses who cried in their beer. She had horses who spit at male queens who made them afraid of themselves. She had horses who said they weren't afraid. She had horses who lied. She had horses who told the truth, who were stripped bare of their tongues. She had some horses. She had horses who called themselves horse. She had horses who called themselves spirit and kept their voices secret and to themselves. She had horses who had no names. She had horses who had books of names. She had some horses. She had horses who whispered in the dark, who were afraid to speak. She had horses who screamed out of fear of the silence and who carried knives to protect themselves from ghosts. She had horses who waited for destruction, and she had horses who waited for resurrection. She had some horses. She had horses who got down on their knees for any savior. She had horses who thought their high price had saved them. She had horses who tried to save her, who climbed in her bed at night and prayed as they raped her. She had some horses. She had some horses she loved. She had some horses she hated. And these were the same horses.
Wow. That's astonishing.
You can sit there all day long and read dinner bell. And we'll all
Well,
get together.
so I want to hear you read some of the other stuff you've sent recently, if you're ready.
Absolutely. I would love to. And kind of in that spirit of spending a little more time on the poem. So that one I sent, I've retitled it ululations. Did you know that word? Do you know that word? I've already asked you this.
Well, you haven't asked me that, but no, I don't remember the song. There's a song on one of my family members' playlists with a lot of ululation.
A lot of howling. I was looking for the right word to fit into this poem.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that word using the internet. So just want to full disclosure, I do use it. So yeah, I posted this on Medium and I shared it with you, and then last night and this morning I spent some more time with it to shape it up a little more. So this is called, and I love how hard it is to say the word. It's like I'm back in acting class doing tongue twisters to warm up. This is called ululations. I meditate on the connectedness of the world as the mushroom cloud reaches its peak. I ruminate on the vast accomplishments of humanity to drown out the din of crying babies. I elucidate to my children the way things used to be, as my father and his before. I pontificate to my rideshare driver the recycled rage streaming in my hand. I ululate to the moon the regrets of my species as my dog glances around the park, embarrassed. I celebrate our conversation around mental health as we melt into new fossil fuel. I relegate responsibility to the men in power as I shit plastic and eat chicken goo shaped as little dinosaurs. I negotiate a peace with each moment as I step from one trap into another, finally grateful to the God of time.
A piano